Greetings in the best of salutations. That would be prayer, power, peace, patience, and prosperity. Just want to express myself in this wise in regards to societies under social reconstruction, wherein our feelings are becoming desensitized, slash emotions, thoughts demoralized, attitude dehumanized, language devitalized, and activity destabilized, which means dealing with a spirit of apathy. It is difficult, or can be difficult, for a woman to perform in a masculine or under the dominance of masculinity. Patriarchal, sexist, misogynist society. Yes, um, the difficulty in performing in such a society, uh, in inner culture, is very challenging indeed. It is as if it's so that she must have a subordinate role, you know, to be subservient. The subordinate must be always polite. But what we're really dealing with is one's mentality. You can tell the psychology of one's mentality by what he or she produces, his perception of how a person sees another individual and their role in which they want them to play. For them, by the way, not them for themselves, those who they want to play the role. I've come to learn to know one of the most powerful biological systems is the reproduction system. And of course, that's women, you know. Yes, so, and when I think about that, um, I think about the uh, when it comes to the role that not only women play, but those who view to be a subservient, and how they or viewed as to be subordinate, viewed to be inferior. So really, that's what they call judgment focus, and that judgment focus comes through negative filtering, and that negative filtering has a sense of labeling. Yes. So, how is one's femininity and one's masculinity? How is it to be understood? I realize out of understanding comes consciousness, and nature comes to awaken our conscious. that means we must be responsible. So it is to be understood, consciously understood, by way of being responsible. Being responsible. But the conscious must be competent. Must be competent and conscious and understanding the role of being responsible with your role as a human being. You notice I said human being. I didn't say male or female or masculinity and femininity, because the human person must first be established. Now I'm going to transition in this wise when it comes to um, what they call black masculinity, black male masculinity. We know that there is no such thing. Black and white is just conceptual. It's not nothing that is factual. Because what I'm trying to see is is that the mindset of those who create these perceptions and these ideologies and these philosophies and this type of mentality of thinking is that they are going to the extreme to trying to define themselves and how the role that they are to play in the society. Yes. And that could be based on anthropology, which means how they interpret reality, whatever environment in which they grew up in and which they come out of. Whatever the environment, was it cold or warm? How was the household? How was it raised? I mean, each generation have to define his or her role in the world, and even though that becomes their reality, and then they impose their reality on someone else, and then someone and impose their reality on someone else, so they force them to accept their reality, and some would call it culture hegemony. Well, this is the humanity that I'm going to give to the world. But yeah, so this black male, as they call it, in language, when you do something wrong, you call it blackmail. And in an anti-black world, denied maleness, denied his maleness, his state, his quality and being, which means he or she is seen as a non-being, which means interdeterminacy. And when you deal with interdeterminacy, you're dealing with a non-being. It means that uh, you have a symbolic representation. Now we see how this permeates and plays out in politics and economics and even in the academic world. Religious world, you have a title before your name. You represent a specific political party. You're not human. And you see in the society in which we live, through media, press, and television, those who are celebrated, that they're made out to be larger than life. And then therefore the deny of acceptance and value of appreciation for the other human being is like meaningless. Meaningless. But yet those who come up with this exclusivity of thinking, this exclusive club, moral principles is meaningless to them. Then therefore Those who see that moral principles are meaningless to them, those who themselves have no moral principles follow the meaningless moral principles of others who set the standards. But then there are those who are denied their their maleness, or even their feminineness. Um, we could look at the attire that one wears. Um, you could look at, as one time here in what they call America, where is that if you were working as a sharecropper, or you're working on plantation, whatever, and you look at the slave master's wife and how she was dressed, and then you look and see how you was dressed, and it doesn't, you don't look very appealing. But you look at the slave master's so-called slave master's wife, and she look appealing, and therefore you want to look appealing yourself. Look, with this glamour. You want to look like, be feminine. So that means that your perception becomes very distorted. Your perception become guided by those who set these standards and set these principles. They become the model in which people will set, and then therefore, many will go to extremes to try to look like that and act like that and be like that. But who are them that you will, to measure who you are and what you want to do and become in life? In the book Man Not, it has an image of George Stinney, the youngest black man that was executed, I think 1944. Left to check, 14 years old, I believe. Written by Tommy J. Carey. He says if whiteness is masculine in relation to blackness, then blackness becomes relationally defined as not masculine and feminine because it lacks the power of white. Interesting. The power of white masculinity. Thus, black maleness is in fact a degendered negation of white maleness that is feminine because of its subordinate position to white masculinity, but not female because black maleness lack a specific gender coordinate that responds to either white maleness or white femaleness, and shown later relates to the white female primarily as anything in comparison to white masculinity, the power, so-called power, white masculinity. If you do something to one of their women, you are seen primarily as a rapist. Not to mention that those who will do such a thing to you, the black male, to rape you mentally, emotionally, economically, socially, religiously, culturally. They are not seen as a rapist. That's foul behavior, man. That's foul behavior. That's foul behavior, man. A vile behavior, which is a foul. It says that wherever the dead carcass is, the vultures will gather. Yes, it is said that historically that what we call blacks were trained at the laws in the colonial educational system was trained at the laws administration level. They was trained to admire and appreciate and revere and respect everything that's white. So I'm gonna read this again. If whiteness is masculine in relation to blackness, relation in comparison, the way we connect, the way we relate to one another, the way we get along, our interpersonal skill, I mean our interaction skills, even our interpersonal skills in relation to blackness, then blackness becomes relationally defined as not masculine and feminine because it lacks the power of white masculinity. Thus, black maleness is, in fact, a degendered negation, blocking access. Negation is to block. You go up for a basketball shot, you block it. You try to shoot a goal in soccer, you block it. You try to shoot a hockey puck, you block it. Try to kick a field goal, you block it. Negation of white maleness that is feminine because of its subordinate position. Then we see the extreme that people go to become other than what they are not, contrary to nature. Hmm. So I recall a brother who had wrote a book, and I don't necessarily like to get into certain names. Very book, I believe, in the 60s or 70s, and he met another known author, black, black, well, African American, and very progressive. And the brother, known author, was a known open homosexuality. I'm a homosexual, if I may use that term. And they sat and met. And another brother was there too, and he couldn't believe what he said. This 6'4" guy who was very aggressive and progressive saw the gentleman who was a homosexual and kissed him, tongue kissed him. There was repressed homosexual emotions. So what is this? Repression, suppression, and oppression. The reflection of not having any moral principles, and life is meaningless. A non being, only one's reputation is one that is very symbolic. Intimacy replaced by indeterminacy as being a non being, meaningless, of no value, no purpose. Seen as a waste. without giving enough time or opportunity to evolve and develop oneself and become a mature, full human being. When one becomes a full, mature human being, there is no need to go to the extremes and do things that is contrary to nature. All species interact and relate with its own kind. In relating with its own kind, they learn to coexist with one another. They learn to cooperate with one another, to live with one another, to grow with one another, to admire, respect, and appreciate one another. Talking about human beings now. But when there is disharmony, dysfunctionalism, disorganism, disorganization, disrespect, and destruction will be dominant, will be the model for people to follow. Whether he or she calls himself a male, a female, a heterosexual, or homosexual, politician, doctor, or lawyer. The ultimate aim is to treat each other as human beings. That we overcome these repressed emotions, suppressed emotion, and oppression. And that we learn to admire and appreciate and allow each other in the best of ways to experience the beauty of this life and expressing appreciation for our human emotion, human emotions, and for our human existence. That it serve and we serve as a benefit for one another. Going beyond race, going beyond class, going beyond gender, going beyond economics, going beyond education. That there is no need for a secondary role when all those sperm cells in one made it. So we all have a primary role or a leading role to play in becoming practitioners of social maturity. Until next time, talk to you.